I wanted to follow up on the conversation that you were having with Congresswoman Davis about vaccine production and distribution. So I understand that vaccine development is being addressed by Operation Warp Speed. However, I have some real concerns that if we wait until the vaccine is developed before we start thinking about the mechanisms to produce and distribute it, we'll lose precious time.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's not the case. That's not the case.
Well, and so I'm just about to ask.
In parallel.
Wonderful. I'm so pleased to hear that you are working in parallel. I recognize your comment about the need to have a plan to increase the speed of distribution. So can you tell me what the timeline is for that plan?
That is being worked in Operation Warp Speed right now, and General Perna is probably better to answer that. But I will tell you there has been an enormous amount of work done up to this time. What is being rationalized right now is where the vaccine goes first. And once the prioritized list of who receives it is determined, then that determines where it will go, and then the details can be worked out.
Okay, so to fully understand that, so Operation Warp Speed is not only managing the development of the plan, but the development of the vaccine, but also where it will be delivered. Who is managing the plan for what needs to be manufactured in an effort to distribute the vaccine as quickly as possible?
So it's a combination of Dr. Slawe and General Perna. They are leading it. And what is happening is a series of vaccine companies are being funded to manufacture and then do the finish and fill. And then they are looking at the distribution as well.
So I want to make sure I fully understand that they're working with individual companies for the manufacturing of the specific things that will be needed for the distribution. So I'm not thinking just the vaccine, but the vials and the needles
Correct.
And the swabs.
Correct.
Okay, and so is DoD through the Defense Production Act already starting to identify how to make sure that there aren't those same hiccups in the supply chain that we've seen in testing, for example?
Absolutely. However, what we have done is we have moved away from the Defense Production Act for the health resources because we have found a way to tap into a larger pool of money that HHS has through the CARES Act to do the exact same investment in industry to get that increased capacity and throughput. So yes, that is being worked. That is primarily within Warp Speed right now, working with the Joint PEO under the Army, and they leverage the Joint Acquisition Task Force as well. So yes, there's a large DoD portion of that.
Okay, and can you explain just a little bit more what the value is of going through the CARES Act process as opposed to the Defense Production Act?
Absolutely. Right now we had $1 billion appropriated through DPA Title III in the CARES Act. We used about $200 million of that for HHS type things, if you will, and then we were able to work with HHS lawyers and DoD lawyers and come up with a mechanism to use the Economy Act to tap into $17 billion that HHS has, so it expands the pool and allows us to use even more money while taking the balance of the $1 billion that came through for DPA Title III and use a portion of that for the defense industrial base.
I appreciate your comments there, and I'm pleased to hear that you're working with Operation Warp Speed to utilize that. And can you explain a little bit more about your role in conjunction, as you mentioned, you are working with them?
They look back to us for acquisition assistance as needed. But what we did was really bifurcate all of our efforts about 3 or 4 weeks ago from what we were doing in terms of just the supply chain task force into one effort looking at the strategic national stockpile and another effort being Operation Warp Speed, which is the vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. So some of the people that were working in JADF on everything went over and were dedicated to Warp Speed. That being said, General Perna and I have regular conversations. Stacy's team in the JADF supports them. So it's a very fluid organization in terms of if there is a need, we will support that instantaneously.